I'd say there's kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think our industry is trending more towards the good, and kind of the bad and the ugly are getting fished out along the way. But if I can build something that reaches people kind of beyond my own capacity, and that's what the reason that I'm doing YouTube videos, to hopefully people watch that. Maybe they'll never have the opportunity to, or I'll never have the opportunity to talk with them, but they can take something on that and build their life on it, or build their educational base on it, especially in the financial world.
Yeah.
Giving them maybe the ability to go to their financial advisor and say, hey, I watched a video on a guy who talked about Roth conversions. Does that make sense for me? And maybe that advisor is kind of deer in the headlights. I have no idea what that means. Maybe that's a good sign that that person is kind of ready to jump to a retirement specific focused advisor that can help with some of those concepts. Or maybe that's why I always say data-driven retirement planning to help you have peace of mind in retirement is the kind of a long-winded way for me to say that the retirement space to me is where I find I can bring the most value and the most provable value, and I also think is the most important part of kind of your money life cycle. Is you can make a really big mistake early on in retirement and it really derails the rest of your life, or you can make a pretty big mistake when you're 25, 30 and you have some chance to kind of recover from it.
Not a ton of wiggle room there.
Right.
Yeah, well, Connor, you touched on a great point, like your overarching key problem that you solve. And just to reiterate what you said, ease of mind. And I'm curious, would you say that at the core of your work, is that the main problem that you solve for people, or what do you feel like you provide to these individuals?
Certainly, I would say the most rewarding conversation that I have with people is after we implement their retirement plan and the station, everything's in place, and they say, I feel so much better, I can finally breathe. I'm not waking up and checking my phone for what this ticker is doing. I'm not reading the news, looking at headlines that really shouldn't affect and don't affect my life. I'm really happy, and just getting messages, sometimes it comes in emails, sometimes it comes in conversation. After you get through the tough part, getting that plan in place, getting on the same page, implementing that plan, just that sigh of relief that people feel is just super rewarding. What they're fearful of, that's one of my favorite questions when I first meet someone and we're doing like a discovery. It's always kind of awkward and weird to ask, but it's like, what's your biggest fear, or what keeps you up at night? And that question alone, the way that they answer it, that tells you so much about how you need to handle that planning with them. Because if their biggest fear is something that shouldn't affect their plan, but it obviously is affecting their mindset and how they might react in a certain situation, if you ignore that and let that fester, you're going to be in a tough situation when that fear kind of boils over, where you kind of need to understand that and build a plan that is going to avoid that in the future. I'll Jeremy Kyle a shout out, because he put me onto the learning motivational interviewing concept. But I think any advisor out there, if you haven't heard of that, it was kind of a light bulb for me that helped me make conversations go a lot smoother. An example of that would be, say someone is telling you that they're kind of charitably minded. Well, you might think your advisor brain goes, okay, donor advised fund, okay, they could do QCDs in the future. Then on that same time when you're thinking about that, they told you, our kids are doing well, we don't have a big legacy for them, we want to give this amount of charity at the end, but our biggest fear is that we don't want to run out of money. So we're more focused on that, but we also don't want to leave a bunch of money. So we need someone that can, and that whole time you're thinking donor advised fund, QCD, and then you say, well, have you heard of a donor advised fund or a QCD? You completely missed all the important stuff of that conversation, where the reflective listening would be, you're not thinking about anything but what the client's saying, and then you repeat back to them what they just said to make sure that you understand it and they know that you were listening to them. So there you'd say something like, so it sounds like you're kind of, when you think about legacy, you'd like to leave some to charity. If you left some to the kids, that'd be okay, but that's not your biggest concern because they're both doing well. So your biggest concern is not spending your money and enjoying your retirement, but at the same time, you don't want to run out of money. So we need to probably look at like a guardrail approach. Is that something you've heard of? And that can direct them into a conversation that you heard everything they said, they know that you heard that, and now you're directing it into something that's going to be helpful to them, where if you just right away you cut that off and, oh, I got a good idea, they're going to think I'm smart if I bring this up. That completely derails the whole, and I'm guilty of doing that myself. Again, something you can always improve and get better on.
Yeah, it's hard to do because you're trained to be an expert in what solution you're providing for them. It's easy to glaze over the root emotional cause for them being there. So, great point. I think that's really helpful and something I honestly think a lot of other advisors are overlooking.
I think anyone's going to work with you if they don't like you and if they don't think you're listening to them. That completely wipes you off the table. But there's a lot of advisors that are good, that are, taking a personalized approach. So what has you stand out in comparison to someone else who's probably doing a lot of the similar things is, I would say, just, being authentic with it. You can't really fake that. Like when I'm sitting in front of people and they're telling me their story, I genuinely have kind of a already built-in empathy for them, to the point of where I've told people, I don't think I'm the right advisor for you, or you might not think I'm the right advisor, but I already care about you and I want what's best for you. So let me help you try to find, let's stay in touch. Let me help you try to find the right situation. You can't really fake that. If you either care, you either have that where you really care about someone or you don't. And so that's something that I think people can feel, and I don't know how to, I don't know if you could necessarily teach that if it wasn't there.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a great point. Well, I can already tell just how you engage and talk about your clients and your approach, that you seek to listen and understand what your clients are going through to get to that core. So I think your clients for sure and prospects will feel that and do feel that same thing.
That I was missing in the, I would say, more conventional in-person approach. So, I do meet with people in person if it works out location-wise, but basically 100% virtual. And I use the power of Loom and video to educate clients in ways that I could never educate them in an in-person setting. That would be these people interrupting their day, coming into the office with you. I do think there's some value in sitting around talking non-finance stuff and hanging out, and we get that in our semi-annual review meetings that aren't just on one specific topic. But if this person is just very concerned about one thing, that's a whole bunch of time out of their day. They get in front of you, you try to present something to them. They're maybe taking in some of it. They're shooting off questions to you that you may or may not have the answer to right away. And they probably leave just as confused as when they come in, where you can use that video and the education and give them 10 minutes of, this is exactly how your plan is. This is exactly why we're making this adjustment or we're not making any adjustments. And they can watch that video as many times as they want. Once I was able to adapt that has allowed me to bring even more value to the client of educating them and empowering them in that way.
Yeah, I completely agree. Loom is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful tools ever, especially to stay personalized with people, have a meeting that they can essentially attend at their own time and still see your face. It accomplishes everything that an email can do, but also adds your face to it.
That did not work out, and that I was incapable of being someone else. So I guess the lesson there was, if you're doing anything that isn't authentically you, and if you're doing it just for marketing, it's never gonna work. It's too easy to sniff out, and it's just awkward too.
I agree.
Maybe there is gonna be a kind of an AI virtual advisor at some point that can help out a little bit in educating people. I think that could potentially be a shift, but maybe some of the education front, if anything, would be enhanced by that.
Yeah, it's going to be a big shift. I think everyone's a little bit more fearful about it than anything, and I agree with your angle on it. If anything, I believe it's going to enhance the overall services that the advisors are able to provide. Conor, thank you for taking the time to be here and answering some of these questions. It has been, I know, very valuable to our listeners and to potential people who are looking for retirement solutions, and they definitely have a trusted hand in you. So